this seems like a no-brainer to me. It's like one of those things where I'm just like, oh yeah, it's software. We'll just do this and this and this and like magic and it works. And everyone just gets lost in these cycles of, oh, this system doesn't do this system doesn't do that. So how do we get them to work together? And then they like end up doing that thing where they're not collaborating and then they're not talking to each other and they can't like just get to a solution where I don't think the solution has to actually be that hard. It's like, what's the actual problem? They need a link with their tickets and they need up-to-date content. And then we need to be able to send that link out to the people that order it. Like, that's all it comes down to.
Every year, millions of attraction visitors lose hours in line instead of making memories.
Since its inception, Accesso's virtual queuing has saved more than 4.5 billion, yes, that is billion with a B, minutes of wait time, freeing guests to pack their day with more rides, eats, and excitement.
The result? Happier guests who spend more and a better bottom line for you.
Ready to turn waits into wins? Visit accesso.com/ROI clinic.
The queues are virtual. The results are real.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing really well. How are you?
Well, I am fantastic.
All right. Get
Yes.
a little Doppler effect in there. Just a little.
Exactly. Say, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever been underwhelmed by a pre-visit ticketing experience?
Yes. Not to have a lack of specific examples, but I've almost all pre-visit ticketing experience, especially being fresh off this conversation here. Now I feel like are all pretty underwhelming.
Yes. Well, and so here's the question. You think about efficiency, you think about technology, you think about, oh, someone's going to buy a ticket. All they need is that QR code to get in and they can get into the park or they can get into the facility. That's all people need, right?
That's it from a functional standpoint.
That's all they need. But
that's all the software matters.
if you listen to Kim Welch from Welcome Hub, who is our guest today, you will hear that the experience can be so much more. She's had a whole career of working with different companies where she has, in her words, making digital ticketing better. And she really walks through what that process is, what it looks like. And what really got my gears turning were all the possibilities of how people can be engaged even before they get to the venue. And we've talked about this before. Kim even asked you this question. She said, when does the guest experience really start? And that got me thinking too, like it could start like as soon as I even think about doing something, before I've gone to their website, before I've done any research, before I've even bought the ticket. To me, that's kind of when it starts.
Yeah. I mean, you can keep like backtracking it further and further. It starts at birth is when it starts. One could argue that. But you're right. She talks about making digital ticketing better. And I think that is such it's a big statement. And it feels like a tall order, especially in the digital landscape that we live in. I feel like, you're buying a ticket to an attraction. You might be thinking about what that experience is like compared to, say, watching a movie on Netflix or ordering an Uber or ordering food through, DoorDash or Grubhub or something like that. Even though those aren't in our industry, those are other experiences that now we're comparing everything against. So the idea of making digital ticketing better digital ticketing better, Kim says, is not just about saying it's not good enough, but that, like you said, the possibilities have the opportunity to continue to expand and enhance.
And one of the things that she really talks about in that realm is ticketing as a pre-show, right? You think about going to any attraction and you've got the main show, the big thing that you're going for, but there's maybe a room or two of things where you're getting ready for the show. They're explaining the context, they're explaining the story, they're introducing the characters. All of that can happen before you get to a venue. Right. And that can happen. Now we've got people's information. We've got an email address. We may have a physical address. And now we can really take that experience and say, let's look at ways to engage people. This actually reminded me of our conversation of the intersection of the guest and employee experience, because again, she kind of turned the tables on us and she said, how much time do we spend orienting people to their new job? And the answer is a lot. And then I know you've even talked about having the guest orientation and how do we get people all the information that they need? Well, if we look at this ticketing as a pre-show, now we've got an opportunity. Maybe it's even a different mindset to say, we shouldn't just send people a bullet pointed list of the things that they need to know, but we really should be treating this as an entertainment option or an entertainment opportunity to say, we're going to teach you something in a very fun way, but it's also going to help your vacation.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And then, tying into that, she talks about creating unboxing moments, which to me, I just think of, all right, we're in a business that is experiential, it's intangible. Therefore, we're recording this around the holidays. If you're giving that as a gift to someone, it is a very underwhelming gift compared to, a cool new Hot Wheels set, that has that immediate excitement of it. If it is simply, the printout of the PDF or if it's the ticket, that in and of itself does not match the level of experiential value that it offers.
So should we unbox this episode with Kim?
As long as we have our tickets.
Hey, Kim, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Matt. Thank you so much. Sorry to steal your line there. I've just been
That's
watching
okay.
a while and I am a fan. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. You can steal the line anytime you like. I appreciate it. It means that I've arrived now that someone
Yeah.
else has actually said it. So I really do appreciate that. Kim, can you give us a little bit of background in terms of your history and your kind of your experience in the industry?
Sure. So, question for you, Josh. Where do you think the guest experience begins?
Well, I don't know if you're trying to get me to say it starts when the guest arrives and walks through the gates or pulls into the toll plaza. But I think we all know it starts way, way, way before that. I think it's maybe hard to pinpoint when the guest experience begins. It's probably when they make a decision that they're going to visit, or maybe even that they're going to visit somewhere prior to even defining where they're going to visit. How's that?
Sounds good to me. The real thing is that there's no one answer to any of this. Like for me in the attractions industry, it didn't start when I got a job at a theme park at 16 years old. It started when I first went to theme parks, when I first started watching Disney content as a child. So all of this is a culmination of all of our experiences that we have leading up to it. So I did start in the industry when I was 16 years old at Enchanted Forest Water Safari, where the fun never stops. They're only open during the summer, or they were at the time, and I did a season float situation. So I got to learn retail and operations and front gate ticketing and food kiosks and even gaming and arcades. That was where I ended my summer. And gave me this really interesting overview of all of the different aspects and touch points for the guest journey. So that plus my entire childhood of loving attractions made me want to work at large theme parks. So I finally made the decision to move away from home and move to Orlando. I got there eventually and decided to work for Universal Orlando. I mean, I tried really hard and I eventually got a job there, mainly because My cousin used to work there, or he still does. He's worked there forever. But I would grow up watching videos of him acting in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure during Halloween because he was an actor there, but also an area stage manager and everything entertainment. Even in entertainment, they have this character internally known as Safety Man. My cousin was the original inspiration, and I'm pretty sure he drew and illustrated Safety Man. So I always like was learning about not just the public facing story of attractions, but how they become communities for the staff and employees. And I really wanted to be part of that community. So I did. And after about 6 or 7 years in entertainment there, I finally made my way into a full-time role in IT in ticketing. So in that role, I worked really closely with marketing teams and operations and front gate to make digital ticketing better. And after a few years there, and I decided to move away, and my manager was amazing because he let me work remotely. I was like, hey, just gonna throw this out there. Can I work remotely for you? Because most of the work I was doing was remote. I was working with Hollywood and NBC studio tours and on site at Orlando, and everything I did was online with digital ticketing anyway. So he made it happen. And I was able to work remotely in like 2015 for Universal Orlando and still really do all of the projects I was able to do and travel as needed and that sort of thing. I then moved over to Gateway Ticketing Systems, which was the software that I was working with, and I became kind of a subject matter expert, not kind of, actually a subject matter expert on the e-commerce platform that they offer. And so at Gateway Ticketing Systems, I was working with marketing teams and operations and making digital ticketing better. And was there for 4.5 years. After COVID, I was quite burned out, so I took a break and then got back into admissions and ticketing with the SSA Group. And in that role, I was working with marketing teams and operations, working on digital ticketing and making it better. And after 2 years of doing this, I was like, okay, we have the exact same problems we've had for the past 10 years. So I am finally going to take the leap and start my own software company. And I started Welcome Software Services, and our product is called Welcome Hub. And it is working with marketing teams and operations and making digital ticketing better. And that's my story so far in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I feel like we've got, a lot to unpack here. Just across, your career journey, really curious. There's a number of kind of avenues we can go down here. I'm curious about kind of the jump from entertainment into ticketing because those seem like they're, completely different worlds. And I'm wondering if we could kind of maybe zoom in on that specific transition and if you can expand a little of what was kind of the catalyst for that change and what that transition was like for you?
Yeah, so I'd always wanted to work in Universal Creative, of course. Um, Wanted to design like sets for the attractions, maybe not the actual attractions, but more events or shows and that sort of thing. Uh, but it turns out I'm not great with set design or most actual design. And during college at the University of Central Florida, I was in a digital media program where we learned how to integrate systems, getting systems to talk to each other, and really applying the design of the designers to actually bring an experience to life through web portals and software and that sort of thing. It turns out I was really good at that. So while I was in college, I was in entertainment and worked part-time in entertainment at some of the area shows. And entertainment is great. It's just the pay is just so bad. And trying to make a career and learning everything about digital media, I was like, oh, okay, I could be like a digital creative technologist for the creative department. Guess what kind of role didn't exist at the time for creative departments? So that didn't quite work out. And I was just looking essentially for any type of tech role beyond an entertainment tech. And so we found this role, and I actually found it through a contracting company. So like a recruiting firm found me. I found the role through a recruiting firm. I'm a part-time employee, seasonal employee at Universal, and also a became a contractor at the same time. And I did a 3-month contract at 6 months pregnant and also worked seasonally in entertainment at the same time. And then after I took several weeks off and had my baby and then started full time. We made the transfer over. I guess I did well during my contract.
Definitely, definitely. And well, and it also shows a very much of an entrepreneurial spirit, which I want to get into a little bit later because I know there's some lessons you've learned from doing a couple of different things. But there's really one thing also that I want to dive into because you talk a lot about operations and marketing working together, and that's actually a topic that has come up a couple of times on the podcast. Sometimes that's a great relationship, sometimes it's not. Sometimes their priorities are very different. So I'm curious what insight you can share with us about working with those two groups and how you got them to come together for that better ticketing product.
It was a challenge, to be honest. And even before doing that role at Universal, I was working with stakeholder teams at other companies doing software and being this IT liaison and not totally a business analyst, but working with business analysts because I was always an implementer of things. So I would listen to all of the things, ask the right questions in a more detailed way than a business analyst might, because I think, especially back then, analyst work didn't go deep enough. So I would always actually kind of be not a great employee because by the time the work would get to me, they would be like, okay, make it work. And I'd be like, oh, okay, now I have a million other questions to actually make it work. Like, what are the goals of this project? What are the users doing? Like, are all of the bits and pieces? Who's actually writing this code? Because I would always be working in a system where I needed to help make other systems talk to each other and make sure the data needed to get to the right place and so that the guest and marketing teams could receive and send the right information at the right time, which was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
hmm
That's
So to answer your actual question, because I don't think I answered that yet, just having open conversations with the teams and essentially oversharing, which kind of makes IT leaders cringe a little bit when you go to overshare some things. But an example would be we had a server that was failing one time, and the IT team didn't want to just say the server was failing. So what does it mean when a server is failing? It meant that like some of our partnerships, they would try to do orders or issue tickets and it would get hung up. And then someone on call from IT would have to log in and reset something, or we'd have to have like this really intense monitoring situation over all hours of the night and weekend. And there was this budget tension or whatever. And I was just like, hey guys, like maybe we could just get a new server. And no one had said, let's just get a new server, or like, can we have the budget to get a new server? And so it does make some leaders cringe, but it's also like, oh, that's the whole problem. We have all of these people scrambling and working and trying to make things work, and that causes tension between the teams because one team thinks another team's not doing the right thing, and they all just want people to be open and honest with each other and work together to come up with an actual solution.
Yeah, and that lack of collaboration sometimes is what leads to maybe that friction between marketing and operations. But I love that mindset of like, hey, can we just get a new server when nobody else had, made that suggestion or recommendation? Uh, I want to dive into I feel like overarching topic here of making digital ticketing better. And when I think of just how the last, honestly, like the last quarter century that we've been in, that there's been so much advancements in it. And when I think personally back to, I don't know, 2002, 2003 or so, I remember that was, around the first time I was able to buy a ticket online and print it at home. And I remember how mind-blowing of an innovation that was, and that was just so spectacular. I don't have to go to the ticket window. I can just print it off right here. It's got the barcode on it. I can go right up to the turnstile and scan it. I feel like a VIP. Fast forward now, if you ask me to print something at home, it's going to ruin my day. It's, I am a classic paperless millennial, and so the concept of making digital ticketing better, I feel like has gone through so many, I don't know, advancements and hurdles and just so many iterations. And maybe this is kind of a 30,000 foot question here, but what does it mean making digital ticketing better? And if you could just kind of start from the most philosophical side of it, and then we could probably dive in a little bit deeper with kind of as we go here.
I love that question. And it really is totally contextual, right? Because PDF tickets seemed like the best solution back then. But then in what, 2012 or something like that, Apple launched this super cool thing called Passbook. And in 2014, I was at Universal and I was like, hey, we could use Passbook and to deliver tickets. And there's all these really neat functionality. And I even did a prototype of it. So I was always that employee that would like spend my extra time doing prototypes and proof of concepts and write a proposal and just send it off into the void and maybe something would happen eventually. So I did this prototype and like walked up to the gate and a little notification comes up and it says Universal Studios, Florida. And I just touch it and I scan and then I enter and then I walk through the park and then I get back at King's Cross had just opened up the Harry Potter Diagon Alley and the notification popped up King's Cross Station. So I could just touch it there and scan and move through the campus with my ticket reacting to where I was in the park. And that was amazing. So I always thought, wow, that makes it a better experience than a PDF ticket. And so better is totally a subjective term and a little bit polarizing sometimes because if I say that we need to make something better, it can kind of imply that the solutions we have now are not good. And I'm not saying that. It's technically the solutions we have are good, but it can always be better, especially when I'm a family of five and I'm trying to coordinate a group of people coming together, or even just my family. We went to a theme park and I did not buy tickets online because I was like, there's no benefit of me buying tickets online. We were going to meet someone at the park and get a discount or something like that. And then they were showing up late. So it became this whole logistics thing where I was like, I'm just going to go to the kiosk and grab them. Went to the kiosk and now like, oh, okay, I have these printed tickets. And I literally took pictures of all of my tickets so that I could send them to my husband so that he could have copies of the tickets because I couldn't have two copies of them. And they didn't also give me the option to have digital tickets. So something like that is like, that's a logistical thing that happens in someone's brain. And now the burden is on me, the guest, to figure it out. So that's what making it better is all about is how do we take some of these burdens off of our guests and give them the options they need to make their visit even easier, even before they enter the park. And then make that a thing that they don't have to worry about while they're at the park so that they can actually enjoy their visit and have a great time and not have to think about the dang tickets and what if I need to go back out to the car and my husband has the tickets and I, need to grab diapers, something like silly things like that. That's something that a guest shouldn't have to think about. And then we also have better from a configuration and management standpoint. So this is a very challenging piece in every ticketing system that I have experience with, and I have deep experience with gateway ticketing systems, of course, but I also have some experience with some of the other ones, Tessitura. I even have seen some of Ventrata, Convius, uh, yeah, accesso. So there's a bunch of them, and they all have very either separate ways to manage the content. So every type of PDF ticket is managed in a different way, and it looks the way you manage the content in their actual program, the software itself is challenging. And then I have to manage Apple wallets, and if they have Google wallets, like all of that content is managed separately too. So if I'm spinning up a holiday event, the same event that we had last year, but I need to go in and update the sponsorship and take and dates about other types of things like promos or something like that for this year, I have to go update it in now 5 places. And then there's different variations of those types of tickets, and it becomes a very challenging way to actually manage the content, to the point where when I was at SSA Group, we were like, yeah, we're gonna like try to scale back on some of this to make it more manageable, but now we're actually delivering like less branded content to the guests, because trying to deliver more branded content to the guests is not logistically feasible at this point in time. So it's like this balance that I think software should help solve. And that's why I'm making my own software company.
And there's that entrepreneurial spirit as well. Is you're seeing a problem and you're working to fix it.
Mhm.
I also want to go back to one word that you said, which I think is super important and relates actually back to Josh's question, because you talked about options. Because I know that there's people that if they didn't walk out of their house with something printed, they would feel like they're not prepared. And that's still very much of a reality. And some of the things that you shared with us, prior to the interview was how that sometimes we are overestimating the ability for people to use the digital technology. And also that there are groups of people who are not wanting to be tied to their phones for the entire experience. So can you talk through how you sort of, I guess, anticipate and try to work through those options that people want, because it could be, varied based on demographic, based on your comfort, how comfortable you are with the technology and all those different factors.
Options are interesting because you want to give the guests options, but only the right amount of options. You don't want to give them too many options, because too many options means that they don't know what to do. So, and then also when you're configuring in the system all of the options possible, that could be challenging. So trying to think through what the right options are. Like, I'm going to deliver a digital ticket. And when I was at IAPA, I met this guy and I was like, I'm making, I think that digital ticketing should be more than just like, if you get a mobile ticket, it should be more than just a barcode on a white screen, right? And he was like, oh, cool. He's not even in ticketing. He's like, I just bought an event for next week, and I got a mobile ticket. And he's like, check it out. And he showed it to me, and it was a barcode on a white screen. And I was like, oh, look. Like, wouldn't you like to have a picture or something a little bit engaging from a ticket perspective? And he was like, yeah, I think so. I don't know. Like, he doesn't really know. He didn't care. But I know the marketing team was like, why can't we put the picture on that? Or why can't we add links to help them coordinate their visit better? Or many attractions have groups of people traveling together, and they're trying to make it better. Like, through the Universal app now, you can have your travel party that you are coming with and that sort of thing, which is cool. But most attractions like zoos and aquariums, like that's overkill, right? So I need to manage tickets and say I use an Apple device and my partner uses Google, because just like got to be different, right? A lot of families are like this. Um, but then a lot of families have the same stuff. So even just having the ability to have the tickets in a single link, and I can save them the way I need it on my device. And then you can save them the way you need it on my device, or your device, because we're traveling together. So it's totally fine if you hold my tickets and I hold your tickets just in case. And then maybe I also want to print that out. Now, does printing it out mean you need a PDF? No, not at all. Because guess what? You can print a web page. What does that mean now? Like, that means the web page has to be formatted properly so that it actually prints properly. And a lot of people don't know is like you can actually set up entire sections of HTML code to show only during a printed, and then it could hide other things that are only for mobile screens. Like you can do that, but no one does that. So one of the challenges we would have at some of the zoos I'd be observing is we thought we'd set up the digital experience totally great. And then like we'd have the PDF and there'd be an Apple Wallet available, but then someone would print out the actual web page and bring that in and be like, I don't know why this doesn't work. It's the web page. And it's like, yep, that's why. Or, oh my gosh, some of them that would print out the emails. And if your email is not formatted correctly with the right information, then that's not gonna be right either. So by making sure you think about all of these options and just try to like inception your guests into the path you want them to take, then you can make sure you're prepared for all the options that your guests are going to bring to the table. Because the guests are going to do whatever they want to do, to be honest. And you have to like help guide them and help, I call it onboard them to the experience, you know? So we spend so much time onboarding our employees. Matt, how many times do you consult with leadership teams on engaging staff and onboarding staff?
Quite a bit. Quite a
Quite a
bit.
bit. Mm. And Josh, how many times do you consult with leadership teams on providing a great guest experience in park?
Quite a bit.
And how often do we talk about onboarding guests before they actually arrive?
It's a topic of conversation, and then it quickly gets to the point of saying there is so much that the guest needs to know, needs to understand just to be a guest at your park or at your zoo or at your aquarium or your museum, your FEC, whatever it is, of really how do you take all that stuff and consolidate it down to say, okay, here's the overarching thing you need to know. Where do I park? Right? And then like, what do I do after I get out of my car? What do I do with my ticket? Okay, everything after that, then it's how is that information organized? How can that digital experience and the on-site experience really blend and merge together? And I know that that's something that you've got a lot of thoughts on really saying that digital is not separate. It's all part of the show, and the way that the physical and the digital parts of it can help to onboard that guest and provide that overarching seamless experience.
Yeah. Coming from entertainment, I have a bit of a flair for the dramatic, theatrical. So I always think of like the tickets as the pre-show. Like, oh, okay, we're getting ready. Like we have them in the door. They're here. Now we need to get them ready for the show. And so much information is just stuck in emails. And there are ways to add content to emails in a way that applications know what to do with it, essentially. So if I book an appointment to get my hair done through an online booking, I'll get an email, and that email automatically add it to my calendar, right? Or if I buy something on Amazon and I get that confirmation email, I have a little call out. So this is for Gmail, all right, which 65% of users are in Gmail right now. So and if you're an attraction out there and you don't know what percentage of your guests are using Gmail, like do the math, you might be surprised. So adding a little bit of extra code to your emails that might not be in the system by default will make it easier for your Gmail users to access details about their visit. And a lot of organizations just don't know this. They don't know stuff like that. So I think they expect ticketing systems and those teams that they partner with to know stuff like this and to provide it by default. But ticketing systems are great and they're tools, but they don't use it to talk to guests. They don't actually go through the whole journey. So they really need these partnerships with organizations to collaborate back and forth.
Well, I liked where you were going with tickets show and just
Yeah.
that overarching message. And I think that that's a mindset that could lead to a lot of really great components. Just anecdotally, actually, is I was just having a conversation with a client a few days ago because we've been trying to amplify the pre-visit engagement through that email that they get from the ticket and the way that the guest is able to not only plan their visit, but also to build that enthusiasm, that anticipation for their visit. And we said, okay, we can change it. We can look at this specific verbiage, so it's not just like bullet point list of here's what you need to do, but also really kind of amplify it with their theme, with their brand. And then they came back and said, well, we're not able to do with our point of sale supplier. We can't modify the ticket purchase confirmation email. That's like, okay, well, now that just, truncates the entire initiative that we had built.
Hmm. That's the challenge. I had one of my first clients that I've been working with Welcome Hub. They thought that they couldn't change certain things, but sometimes the ticketing system or support team says you can't, even though they can, because they don't have a great way to manage it. That's one of those things that make is those trade-offs of making things manageable. So, okay, if they can't manage or easily edit the confirmation email, um, what other ways could we send them? Do we send them like a follow-up message? It's okay to send them more than one message. Some people don't want to send more than one message. Totally fine. It's also totally fine to send email and an SMS link. And if they're like, oh, well, we can't send an SMS because then it needs to have a link in it. And then how do we know or define what that link is if the ticketing system doesn't automatically do that? And this is where I've been trying to educate the community on why having an actual separate ticket delivery system like Welcome Hub could actually fit in really nicely and fill in some of these gaps, because the ticket purchase in e-commerce is great, but it's part of this e-commerce system. And that's actually different than the delivery system and pre-visit onboarding in my experience. So if you have this consolidated link where you can link into your ticketing system, because all ticketing systems have APIs now, and I can pull the order details and their tickets. I can show the tickets, but then I could also surface relevant content on a web page to that. I could then save those as Apple and Google wallets where it's all managed in one central place, so it's easy to update the content. And I can then use that unique link that all of your guests get to use in SMS delivery and your emails and your follow-up and your pre-visit onboarding. So you could have text in all of these locations, but then it's all reinforced by this centralized, unique link that always has the most up-to-date information. This seems like a no-brainer to me. It's like one of those things where I'm just like, oh yeah, it's software. We'll just do this and this and this and like magic and it works. And everyone just gets lost in these cycles of, oh, this system doesn't do this system doesn't do that. So how do we get them to work together? And then they like end up doing that thing where they're not collaborating and then they're not talking to each other and they can't like just get to a solution, where I don't think the solution has to actually be that hard. It's like, what's the actual problem? They need a link with their tickets and they need up-to-date content. And then we need to be able to send that link out to the people that order it. Like that's all it comes down to. So,
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact that, as you're talking about this, one of the things that goes on in my mind is we think we've got all this technology. We should be literally able to do anything that our brain can think of. But then there's so many, maybe we'll call them human roadblocks that get in the way, right? Of us being able to say, how do we make this particular technology work and that type of thing. I also want to go back to what you said about, kind of having a flair for the dramatic and engaging your guest during the onboarding process, because you're right. I do talk a lot to clients about like even an orientation program and engaging people in this massive information dump, right? Where you are just generating a lot of information to people who are like wide-eyed. I don't know what's going on. It's my first time, coming to work here. And I remember even back at Universal, I'm not sure if they still do this, but they used actors from entertainment in our orientation program, right? To engage us, to make it a fun process. And really thinking through how that might look from a ticketing perspective. Instead of getting that bullet point list of things that you're going to forget, can you send a video? Can you do something that's more engaging? Can you, to your point, even having a picture there? So I think that really opens up a lot of creativity that we're not putting into the guest onboarding process. So that's just getting my wheels turning in that respect, and I love that. But you also have talked about the fact that there's an opportunity for those guests that instead of just getting something on their phone, that they're spending, all this money on a family vacation. Shouldn't we be sending them something that is like an unboxing, process? So they're creating a keepsake, they're creating mementos even before they come on board. So can you talk a little bit about that philosophy as well?
Yeah, and that's part of having things work together. So I was planning a vacation a while back, and it was going to be between like seven and $10,000, right? That's normal if you're going to a large theme park and you're thinking about food. But from a guest perspective, they want to just come in and be like, okay, how much are tickets? And sometimes they can't, when they're just looking at your ticket website, they can't visualize or think about like how much might this cost for me? Like, what is the average spend? And, or if I get tickets now and I spend $500 to $1,000 on actual just the tickets to the park, yeah, sure, I'm going to get a confirmation email. But if you also have my address because I had to put it into the checkout form, like, why aren't you sending me like a little menu of like the parks uh, restaurants that are there, or and then have a little QR code. Like this stuff seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't spend that much money on Amazon, but maybe like over the course of a year, $1,000, whatever. They're still gonna send me a Christmas catalog with all of the toys and Christmas gifts, and they don't even have prices in it anymore, or even ways for you to easily look up the information or the actual products in that catalog, right? But it's getting you thinking and prepared about what might be available, even if prices aren't there. But you could also be like, hey, start thinking now about how, where your budget's going to be. Like, do you have price sensitive customers coming to your park? You could know this already by looking at your per cap and your spending. So you could know exactly which styles of options or that you can send to your guests, and it could be sent in a way that pairs with digital. So you could say the same exact things in email when you send out a really awesome like postcard or even this unboxing moment where the credit card companies freaking have unboxing moments where people are like, "Ooh, look at my credit card envelope. Let me unbox it." And it's just like, it's a credit card, you know? Like, why aren't we doing this for attractions that spend multi-millions of dollars on beautiful themed physical spaces and like they don't have these other tangible moments pre-visit. And so then what we find is all of these influencers or content creators are trying to fill that gap. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to spout out information that's actually not, maybe not right, or maybe not the message you want shared. So, like, either you partner well with these content creators because you've created a gap, or your guests are going to be learning the wrong things, not from you, but from other people. So I think we need to think forward more about how people are consuming the information and really own it more and have these micro moments beforehand, whether it's through a piece of physical media that I get ahead of time, or maybe I'm going to buy tickets and I'm buying for a holiday. I just recently bought an education camp for my youngest son at our local aquarium, and it was not cheap. And it's 2 days right before Christmas. So I think as this comes out, my kid will be in his very first aquarium camp, and we're so excited. But I'm like, even the email and ticket that I have looks just like a general admission ticket. And so now I have to think about creative ways to give this gift to him. So I may book it online, but then how do I share that experience? How do I reveal the surprise? And like reveal videos are so cool. Have you watched some of these? I get in this loop on videos sometimes where people are doing like this trip reveal for their Disney trip type of thing. There are whole companies now that supply supplies and content for trip reveals. Why aren't the attractions doing it or helping these people and actually licensing the content and media and print materials and actually like building this momentum forward? I think it's a missed opportunity.
You're making such a good point here. Just really like the unboxing, which is okay. It's like a tangible gift. You're opening a present. If you're getting like, if a kid is getting a toy, they're able to open it and see it right away. But the experience, whether it's a vacation, the theme park, the zoo, the concert, whatever it might be, you've got me thinking of times where I've had to use my creative resources, which by the way are not very strong to be able to take something tangible and make it an exciting, unboxing moment. Like like several years ago, to my wife, I gifted, it was like a zip line experience. We were going to Puerto Rico, like for a friend's wedding, and it was just like, oh, like I'm gonna book like a zip line thing. So I had to like take images of us and put it into like a PowerPoint with like the zip line behind it and like trying to crop it. And it was like, it was really tacky. It ended up just like kind of being funny, but then print that out and be like, this is the picture of what will be us. And it's like, okay, I have to replicate this unboxing moment. Otherwise, like for a concert, it's like, okay, here's the printout PDF of the concert tickets. It's exciting because of the idea, but it's also extremely underwhelming compared to the magnitude of the experience. You were able to do
Mhm.
that. So that's it, such a good point. I bet everyone that's listening to this right now is thinking about ways that they can create that experience for their guests beyond simply supplying tickets. So I'm really glad that that you shared that. We are starting to get close to the end here of the interview, and I feel like this time has been flying by. I feel like we've just been talking about just so many ways really to make digital ticketing better, and that it always has the opportunity to continue to grow, to continue to get better. But in the meantime, for now, if people want to learn more about Welcome Hub, or if they want to get hold of you directly, where would you send them?
My website is welcomehub.org, and I have a nice little manifesto on there because I'm a little dramatic. So if you want to hear me rant about stuff on there, or you could listen to me or watch my posts on uh, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Kimberly Welch, and or just Welcome Hub. It's not a fancy spelling of it, welcomehub.org. And that's me. I'm Kim at welcomehub.org is my email address. And you can message me on anything or LinkedIn. And I think I have a digital business card out there somewhere too. And my cell phone number is attached to the contact card on that. So send me a text message if you want to too. I will respond to any media and really love when people reach out and want to just talk about ideas and validate some of the conversation around what they're trying to do internally and if it actually makes sense. And it really just comes down to how you want to serve your guests and where you see the gaps are now and what little steps you can do to make it better. Because it doesn't have to be a ginormous project. It's a web. Like you could make little changes and keep making little changes over and over again to help serve your guests. And it'll compound the way that you guys keep going with Attraction Pros and you just keep being consistent. And it's really inspiring watching what you guys do. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Kim. Like Josh said, this time just flew by. I feel like we just scratched the surface. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your flair for the dramatic. It really was inspiring for us during this conversation. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.